Alright, continuing Chapter 8 of Motor Power and Equipment Compliance Manual. This requirement applies to controlled distributed power locomotives, or DPUs, distributed power locomotives, which are controlled by the locomotive by either railroad signal or electronic signal through the hard wire. This applies to the locomotive consisting of operated via the remote control using a belt pack. The belt pack is treated in the same manner as the cab of the controlled locomotive with the remote control locomotive operation in effect. Part 229-114 non-multiple unit locomotive control cab locomotives. On each of the non-multiple unit control cab locomotives, only the components added to the passenger car that is enabled is to serve the lead locomotive control the locomotive actually providing tractive power, otherwise controlling the movement of the train that are subject to this part. Guidance. Only those components added to the passenger car are remote control locomotive cabooses that make it a function as a locomotive. The control speed indicated related with the control speeding and the braking of the train are subject to this part. 229.17 is accident reports. 229 is 19 prior waivers. And 229 is a daily inspection. Each of the multiple unit locomotives, each of the locomotives in use, shall be inspected at least once during each of the calendar day. A written report for the inspection shall be made. The report shall contain the name of the carrier, initial name, numbers of the locomotive, the place, the date, and the time of the inspection, the description of non-compliant conditions disclosed by the inspection, and the signature of the employee making the inspection, except as provided in statute 229.9, 229.137, and 229.139. Any conditions that constitute the compliance with the requirement of this part shall be prepared before the locomotive is used, except with respect conditions that do not comply with the statute 229.137 and 229.139. A notion shall be made with the reporting and notification nature of the repairs that have been made. The repairs made with the conditions do not comply with the statute 229.137 and 229.139 may be noted on the report or in electric form. The person makes the repairs shall be signed on the report. The report shall be filed and retained for at least 92 days in the office of the carrier at the terminal at which the locomotive is carried. The recommended shall be maintained on each of the locomotives showing the place and date and time of the previous inspection. Each multiple unit locomotive shall be inspected as at least once during each of the calendar. A written report shall inspection shall be made. The report make the part of the single master report covering the entire group of the multiple units, and non-compliance with the conditions are found with a separate individual report shall be made with the containing the name of the carrier, the initial numbers of the locomotive, the place and date and the time of the inspection, the non-compliance condition filed with the signature of the inspector. The inspector is provided in inspection 229. 229, 137, 229, 139. Any conditions that constitute non-compliance with any of the requirements of this part shall be repaired before the locomotive is used, except with the respects conditions that do not comply with statute 229, 137 and 229, 139. A notion shall be made with the report identification nature of the repairs has been made. The repairs that made for the conditions do not comply with statute 229, 137 and 229, 139 may be noted on the report of the electronic form. The person shall make the repairs shall sign the report. The report shall be filed with the office of the carrier and is replaced when the inspection is made at the one central location and retained for at least 92 days. C. Each carrier shall designate a qualified person to make inspection required by this section. Guidance. For the purpose of the calendar day inspection is assertion that the locomotive is safe to operate in the service with which it is used in total compliance with the Part 229 prior to being placed in service. It is a visual walk-around inspection of the locomotive that provides for the opportunity every day a locomotive is used to find and correct the incident problems before leading to any of the accident safety incidences. The effective locomotive carrier to calendar day requires that the individual performing the inspection be alert of the telltale signs of any of the conditions defective is in the potential hazard. After a daily inspection is performed, the locomotive should be freed from any of the non-compliant conditions before it is offered to the service. The locomotive cannot legally be used until the federal defects are corrected. The inspection continues to find the recurrent defects and the pattern non-compliant conditions at the particular location. He or she should modify the performance results of the daily inspection is questioned. The individual performs the inspection and is certain if the individual has knowledge and ability to perform the inspection. If daily inspection reports reflect non-compliant conditions of the locomotive, the inspector finds the conditions were not corrected by the railroad and the locomotive continues to be used, the violation shall be submitted. Such violation shall be accompanied by all the documentation available for the complete explanation regarding the railroad operation of the location. Failure to complete the produced record report in itself is not compliant with the evidence established. The railroad failed to perform the inspection and record the violation unless other evidences, witness statements, interviews in the event, recorded detail, downloads, visual observation is obtained to establish the failure to conduct the inspection. If only the evidence is available merely establishes the failure to complete the cab car Failure of the railroad to produce the required inspection in the apparate section of the site, civil penalty, statute 229-21A2. The report properly executed pertained to the use of the lack of the recording of the report to support the other evidence obtained to establish the failure to perform an inspection violation. Section 8. Daily inspection is required by this section for each of the day of a locomotive is in use. A written report of the required. Then, when is inspection performed, the inspection can be conducted at any time during the day. The calendar day, it can be done just before midnight, just after the midnight, and inspections were performed just after midnight. The locomotive can be legally used for up to almost 48 hours before the next inspections are required. If an inspection is not needed unless the locomotive is during the calendar day. If the locomotive completes the assignment prior to the expiration of the calendar day is not returned to the service of the several days, it would need a daily inspection before midnight of each day it is put back into service. The regulation has a number of ambiguities, but that each of the inspector must be aware of the now judging inspection status when giving the locomotive. Section A and B, the inspection report are to be filed pertaining for the 92 days of the terminal where the locomotive is maintained. The FRA allows all railroads to keep the report of the central location waivers and have to be granted with the individual railroads that allow these reports to be electronically generated and kept. When it is written with an electronic report, it must also contain the name of the report, the initial number of the locomotive, the place and date and the time of the inspection, description and non-compliance condition, the signature of the inspector. The inspector has the right to request the support reports of specific locomotives for the past 92 days. The railroad is obligated to provide with such report in a timely manner. Written and electronic speed for the previous inspection must be physically kept in each locomotive until the next inspection is performed. The record must contain a place and date and the time of the previous inspection. FRA has determined that Statute 229-21A permits the railroad 229-21A permits the railroad to make either a single written report of each of the locomotive inspected with a single written report that covers multiple locomotives, usually an entire provided with the report that contains the necessary information properly retained in the indication below. When the FRA proposed and adopted locomotive inspection reporting the requirements currently with the contained the statute 229-21A, the FRA specifically eliminated the previous existing requirement of an improved reporting with Form C, Title 44, Federal Registration 296113, May 21st, 1978. For proposing existing reporting requirements, the FRA specifically stated that the railroad could adopt the type of the written report as long as it included the required information. See Title 44 FR 29613. Cost frequently will permit the railroads a single written report for the cover of the multiple unit locomotives to meet the written requirements contained in the statute 229-21A. However, in order to ensure that all required information is contained on such reports to ensure the proper retention, the following conditions must be met in multiple locomotives and are addressed on a single day inspection. A. Each multiple locomotive daily inspection report provides a space with initials number of each locomotive inspected, the place and date and time of the inspection, the signature of the inspector. B. The inspection report contains a space entering the initial number of the non-compliant locomotive adjacent with the non-compliant conditions disclosed by the inspection. There also must be a space to enter the corrective action taken with the signature of the person making the repairs. C. A copy of the multiple locomotive inspection report is made by each of the locomotive entered on the report, retained for at least 92 days the lococation designated by the railroad. D. A written record is maintained within each of the locomotive indicating the date and time and location of the previous calendar date inspection. Any condition that constitutes non-compliance with the requirement contained in Part 229 locomotive safety standards is prepared for the locomotive is used. For the locomotive must be tagged or moved in accordance with statute 229-9. When performing records inspection, the FRA inspector shall review the railroad calendar day inspection procedures. If the FRA inspector should make a request, the inspection report to the railroad is unable to provide with a copy of the individual locomotive, appropriate enforcement action should be taken in Motor Power Equipment 0004. Section, this gives the railroad sole prerogative to designate the qualified person to perform the required inspection. The FRA has not set forth the qualification standards for the railroad designated inspector. An inspector should consider the violation of the report if the following questions answered in the affirmative. Were non-compliant conditions previously reported with the calendar day inspection report not repaired? B. Does the railroad have a history of ignoring requirements for the calendar day inspection regulation? C. Can a violation of the documentation of the railroad records for the use of the locomotive other overdue the calendar inspection? Does the overdue inspection create an imminent hazard? If any inspector finds the locomotive being used with multiple or obvious defects after it is received, an inspection violation can be submitted for both defective conditions and failure to perform the proper inspection. All right, your remote control locomotive. The locomotive operating in the remote control locomotive is given with the same day inspection as conventional locomotives. The only difference between the two would be the operating controls. If the locomotive is operating with a manual mode during the inspection, the brakes would be tested from the controls of the locomotive. If the locomotive is operating with a remote mode during the inspection, the brakes would be tested from the remote control transmitter. Additionally, all features on the railroad remote control transmitter would be tested and determined they are functioning properly. If the remote control locomotive received its daily inspection with the locomotive operating with a manual mode, and later crew links the remote control transmitter to operate the locomotive in the remote mode, the transmitter must test it to determine if it functions as intended. To the comments, the remote control operation, no additional reporting is required with regard to the daily inspection reports. Remote control transmitter, when operating locomotive, becomes a frequency of the locomotive and is subject to the provisions of Section 229.7. Therefore, the remote control transmitter is found defective during the calendar day inspection. It may not be used since the transmitter is not permanently mounted on to the locomotive. It is found to be defective. It may be removed from service, and another remote control transmitter can be linked to the locomotive after receiving a proper testing and inspection. If the remote control locomotive equipment permanently mounted when the locomotive becomes defective reports must be noted to the locomotive daily inspection report. The remote control transmitter portable with the interchangeable. The transmitter is found to be defective. It does not affect the locomotive. If the locomotive can be still operated manually and another transmitter can be linked to the remote control locomotive. Since the remote control transmitter can operate with several locomotives, the defective transmitter does not need to be reported on the locomotive inspection report. To satisfy the requirement tag, the defective equipment, Title 49, 229.21, the railroad should develop means of 1. Readily identifying the defects of the remote control transmitter. 2. Record defective conditions. 3. Indicate repair maids. 4. Name the person making the repairs. 5. Maintain the records of the day for the day and 92 days. The requirement maintains an onboard record, does not have to be changed. The remote control transmitter is to be inspected and tested on a daily inspection. Onboard record is inclusive of this. The remote control transmitter is added to the locomotive sometime after the daily inspection. The device must be tested and inspected to ensure the brakes, throttle, and all safety features through function intended motor and power equipment 0201. 229.23 Periodic Inspection General. Each locomotive and steam generator shall be inspected at each periodic inspection to determine whether it complies with this part, except for the provided in Statute 229.9. All non-compliant conditions shall be repaired from the locomotive or steam generator is used, except as provided in Statute 229.33. Intervals between the two periodic inspections may not exceed 92 days. Periodic inspections shall only be made where adequate. Facilities are available. Each of the periodic inspection locomotives shall be positioned with the person safely inspecting with the entire underneath the portion of the locomotive. The periodic inspection of the steam generator may be postponed, identified with the water suction pump at the water pump at the leads of the main switch. That the steam generator switch is disconnected with the train lines to shut-off valve, wire closed, and binded and gasket applied. However, the steam generator shall be inspected before it is returned to the use. After April 30th, 1980, each new locomotive shall receive an initial periodic inspection before it is used, except for as provided in Statute 29.33. Each locomotive is in use before the April 30th, 1980, shall receive an initial periodic inspection within 92 days of the last 30-day inspection performed under the prior rules of Title 49 CFR 233.31, 234.51. At the initial periodic inspection, the date and the place the last time performed that are equivalent of the test are Statute 229.27, 229.29, 229.31. Shall be entered in the Form FRA Form 6180, 41.9a. The date shall determine when the test first becomes due under Statute 229.27, 229.29, 229.31. Out of use credit may be carried out over the form of FRA 6180, 49, and entered in the Form FRA 6180, 49a. D. Each periodic inspection shall record with the form of the FRA 6180 and 49A, but the form shall be signed by the person conducting the inspection, certified by that person supervisor that work was done. The form shall be displayed under the transparent cover the conspicuous placed on the cab of each locomotive. E. The first periodic inspection of the calendar year, the calendar shall remove each of the locomotive of the FRA 618049A covering the previous calendar if the locomotive does not receive the first periodic inspection of the calendar year after April 2nd. Because it is its own out of use, the form shall be properly replaced. The form FRA 618049A covering the preceding year for each of the locomotive in or out use shall be signed by the railroad official. Response from the locomotive field as required in Statute 22923F. The date and the period of the last periodic inspection, date and place of the last test performed under Statute 22927, 22929, 22931 shall be transferred in replacement of the FRA 618049A. After the mechanical officer of each of the railroad who is in charge of the locomotive shall be maintained in his office secondary record of the information reported in the FRA F618049A. Under this part, the secondary report shall retain until the FRA F618049 has been removed from the locomotive and filed with the railroad office of the mechanical officer in charge of the locomotive. If the FRA F618049A removed from the locomotive is not clearly legible, the secondary record shall be retained on the form FRA 618049A of the preceding year is filed with the form at 618941A. The locomotive shall be retained under the form FRA 618049A for the preceding year is filed. Guidance. Section A, the 92-day cycle begins day 1. The entered in the FRA Form 618049A. 92-day cycle is at 11:59 p.m. on the 92 day unless the legitimate out-of-service time is defined in Statute 22933. Some Class 1 railroads are performing inspection reporting for the FRA Form 618049A report at intervals shorter than 92 days. The FRA makes no exception on practicing. The inspector should take insufficient time to examine the report and determine that all the tests have been made, has been performed the required time periods, and the term the adequate facility is deliberately not spelled in out of this regulation. The regulation does not mandate the pit of the required must be possible thoroughly inspect the underneath the portion of the locomotive safely. This allows small short lines which may not have a pit the flexible space to arrange the locomotive in such a position and a location that the person can safely inspect the under the locomotive. Section B. In this section, all practice practical purposes and obsolete given to that all passenger trains used by the Amtrak commuter railroads use a head and electric power for heating their trains. There may be some steam generator in the use of the train using some seasonal, tourist, or historical operation. Section D. The FRA Form 618049A must be signed by a worker performing the inspection and supervisors in charge of the worker's signature is required. One small railroad operation is the owner or the supervisor worker may be owned one individual. Therefore, one individual who signs as a worker and supervisor. Alright, some railroads have gone in the computer generated the FRA Form 618049A, which replaced each of the periodic inspection. The form must bear original signature of the person involved with the most recent inspection test. The computer generated form, the form used in the intervals of less than 92 days, will require inspectors to spend more time to determine if the locomotive is in compliance with the time elements statute 22923, 22925, and 227. Or 22927. If inspectors find locomotives without the FRA Form 618049A display the locomotive he or she may inquire of the railroad as the reason. The inspector is satisfied with the railroad backup records. The form was lost or destroyed. The railroad is allowed to fax a copy of the form to be placed on the locomotive. The fax copy would have to be legible with all pertinent information signatures. Section F. Unless requested, a railroad does not have the forward an FRA Form 618049A to Washington, D.C. Office of Safety and Assurance and Compliance. Periodic inspection of locomotives that operate outside the United States. With the increase of the railroad traffic at both the U.S.-Canadian border and the U.S.-Mexican border, inspectors should govern the following information relative to the required daily periodic inspection testing for locomotives. Locomotives operate outside the United States are governed by laws in country where they are operating. Neither Canada nor Mexico requires types of inspection that are commensurate with the test inspection described in Section 229, 21, and 23 and 25. 27 and 29. However, the FRA requires that all locomotives operated with the United States must be in full compliance with the federal laws and regulations. Therefore, the FRA requires that all the locomotives entering the United States from either Canada or Mexico must not be used until all the test inspection required in Section 229.21 at attention all sequence have been completed, properly recorded. These inspection testing must be done either by the point of entry to the United States, arranged to be done within Canada or Mexico prior to the entire entry of into the country. If the inspection tests are properly performed and other locomotives is not in compliance with the FRA regulations upon entry in the United States, the locomotive may be moved only to provisions of Section 229.9, a dead and light locomotive. Motive power and equipment 9837. Statute 229.25, testing every periodic inspection. Each periodic inspection shall include the following: all mechanical gauges used by the engineer to aid in control and braking of the train and locomotive, except for the load meters used in conjunction with the auxiliary brake system, shall be tested by comparison of a dead weight tester or a test gauge designed for that purpose. B. All electrical devices, visible installations shall be inspected. All cable connections between the locomotive and jumpers that are designed to carry 600 volts or more shall be thoroughly cleaned, inspected, tested for continuity. Each steam generator that is not isolated prescribed in Statute 229.23b shall be inspected as tested as follows. All automatic controls, alarms, protective devices shall be inspected and tested. 2. Steam pressure gauges shall be tested in comparison with the dead weight tester and the test weight gauge designed for that purpose. The siphons of the steam gauges shall be removed from their connections, examined to determine that they are open. 3. Safety valves shall be set and tested under the steam after the steam pressure is tested. E. Event recorder. The microprocessor based on the self-monitoring event recorder, if installed, except for the periodic inspections under paragraphs E1 through E5. The section shall be inspected annually as required in Statute 229.27d. Other types of event records, if installed, shall be inspected, maintained, and tested in accordance with the instruction manufacturer, supplier, or owner thereof, or in accordance with the following criteria. A written electronic copy of the instruction is used to be kept at the point of the work is performed, with a hard copy version written for the English language shall be made available upon the request of the government agency empowered with the request. 2. The event recorder shall be tested before any maintenance work is performed on it. The minimum of the event recorder shall include the cycling as practicable all recorded elements and determining the following range of each element and reading out the recorded data. 3. If pre-maintenance does not reveal the device record of all the specified data that all recordings are in the design recording elements, these facts shall be noted and maintenance testing shall be performed as necessary until subsequent test is successful. 4. A successful test accomplished, a copy of the data verification results shall be maintained in a medium with the maintenance records for the locomotive until the next one is filed. 5. A railroad event recorder periodic maintenance should be considered effective if 90% of the recorders of the locomotive inbound with a periodic inspection any given calendar day are still fully functional. Maintenance practices, test intervals shall be adjusted as necessary to yield effective the periodic maintenance. Alright, your guidance. Section A. Many of the railroads use portable air gauge tests that allow the testing without removal of the gauge. These use of such devices, except as long gauge tested throughout the entire range. These requirements do not apply to electronic display, as they are checked annually. Section B. Sufficient inspections covered are to be removed from the traction motors, traction generators, electronic cabinets in order to thoroughly inspect such an equipment for the general safety conditions and safety defects. Section E is an inspector advises the inquiry about the monitor and periodic inspection maintenance practices, test intervals used at the railroad for the event recorders when the performing route inspections of at a locomotive facility, motive power and equipment 98.2. 1. Requires replacement by October 1st, 2009, each recorded for the use of magnetic tape, strong medium with certified crash-worthy event record memory module, or ERMM. Capable of recording the last same data elements with the recorded and replaced. A magnetic tape recorder replaced after October 1st, 2005 must be replaced with a certified crash-worthy event record memory module. 2. Requires all necessary modules, necessary locomotives lead. Requires all new lead locomotives, lead manner help locomotives controlling distributed power locomotives ordered after October 1st, 2006, placed in service after October 1st, 2009, to be equipped with certified crash-worthy emergency record memory module capable of recording up to 25 data elements of the traditional locomotive and 22 data elements of the multiple unit or direct multiple units locomotives. 3. Required all manufactured locomotives October 1st, 2007 to be equipped with the certified crash-worthy emergency remote event recorder memory module capable of recording the last same data elements as the event recorder of the locomotive prior to the manufacturing. 4. Requires event recorders originally manufactured after January 1st, 2010 installed over the cover locomotive to be equipped with the certified crash-worthy event recorder memory module. Contains specific performance to determine the crashworthiness of the event recorder memory module. This includes criteria of fire impact, shock, static rush, fluid immersion, hydrostatic pressure, containing testing sequence requirements. The criteria are based on existing crush worthiness standards of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, or Incorporated, or IEEE. Modified locomotive environment. Requires preservation of event recorded data over the period 1 year for any locomotive involved with the accident incident required to be reported in the FRA under Part 225. 7. Provides relief from the periodic inspection requirements of the microprocessor based on the event recorder self-monitoring features. Requires inspection of these type of events required annually. 229.27 annual test. Locomotive except for the direct multiple units and the multiple units locomotives shall be subjected to test inspection paragraph the A, B, and C of this section. Direct movement multiple unit locomotive and the multiple unit locomotive shall be subjected to the testing inspection prescribed in paragraph B and C of this section. The locomotive, including the direct multiple unit locomotives and the multiple unit locomotives equipped with the microprocessor based on event record that includes the self-monitoring feature shall be subjected to tests and inspection prescribed in paragraph D of the section. Intervals do not exceed 368 days. A1. Filtering device of the dirt collectors located in the main reserve supply line to the air brake system shall be cleaned and repaired and replaced. 2. Brake cylinder relay valve portion, main reserve safety valves, brake pipe valve portions, feeding of the reducing the valve portion and the air brake system, including related dirt collectors and filters, shall be cleaned and repaired and tested. 3. Date, placing, and cleaning and repair testing shall be recorded on the form FRA 618049A, and the past person performing the work of the person supervisor shall sign the form and record the parts of the air brake system that are cleaned and repaired and tested, and shall be kept in the carrier's files in the cab of the locomotive. 4. At its own option, the carrier may fragment the work required by this paragraph. The event of the separated with the air record shall be maintained with a transparent cover over the cab. The air record shall include the locomotive number, a list of the air brake components, the date and place of the last inspection test components, the signature of the person performing the work, and the signature of the person supervising shall be included with the component of the duplicate record shall be maintained with the carrier's files. B. The load of the meter shall be tested. Each of the device shall be used by the engineer to aid the control or braking of the train locomotive that provides an indication of the air pressure electronically. Shall be tested in comparison with the testing gauge of the self-tested, designing for the purpose. An error of greater than 5% of 3 pounds per square inch shall be corrected. The date and place of the test shall be recorded in the form FRA F618049A. The person conducting the test, the supervisor shall sign the form. C. Each steam generator that is not isolated as prescribed in Statute 229.3b and shall be subject to the hydrostatic pressure at least 25% above the working pressure of the visual return water flow indicator that shall be removed and inspected. D. A micro-based event recorder shall self-monitor the feature equipped to verify the data elements required by the part is recorded and requires further maintenance only if either or both of the following conditions exist. 1. The self-monitoring feature displays an indication of failure. The failure displayed, but the further maintenance testing must be performed if the subsequent test is successful. When the successful test is accomplished, a record in any of the medium shall be made of the fact that any of the maintenance work necessary to achieve the successful result. This record should be available at the location where the locomotive is maintained until the record of subsequent testing is filed. 2. A download of the event recorder taken with the preceding 30 days reviewed by the previous 48 hours. The locomotive operation reveals the failure to record regular recurring data element. It reveals that the recorded data element is not representing of the actual operational locomotive during this time period. If the review is not successful, further maintenance and testing shall be performed until the subsequent test is successful. When a successful test is accomplished by a record in a medium, shall be made of the fact if any of the maintenance work necessary to achieve the successful rate, the record shall be kept in a location where the locomotive is maintained until the record of sequential success is tested and filled. The download shall be taken to information stored in classified crash-worthy crash hardening event record memory module if the locomotive is equipped. Guidance. Section locomotive